with Mr. McDonough, who has elevated his game to the next level, being not only our coach, our trainer, our broker, and he's got so much to share with us from, of course, his experiences, hence his company name, Time Tested Mastery. So it's all been tested. Now it's just, he's just sharing all this stuff with us. So thank you, Mark. And flying in to be with us in person, we like that, right? Yes. Yes. So Mark has a great topic for us today, the professional's edge. I'm really excited to hear his presentation and his take on that. So welcome, Mark Dolan.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dana, for the introduction and for the invitation. I think I know most of you very well, so it's a safe audience. So I think. Dana made the comment that all of this stuff is time tested. It's been things that were taught to me over the years. But one of the things that I've recognized, so I'll sort of start with this, is that, towards the tail end of my real estate selling career, I would go to a listing presentation and I'd be, okay, I'm going to get the same darn objections that I've ever gotten. I don't really want to fight over a water heater when we're negotiating this deal. Anybody ever feel that way? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, start a new career like public speaking. Oh. I couldn't eat. My stomach's all jacked up because I couldn't eat. But I'm excited to share these ideas with you. And so today, obviously, our topic today is called the professional's edge. And it really is, it stems from two things. One is the quote that is on the front of your handout that you guys can all see there. It stems from that, and this was shared with me by an engineer at the Eastman Chemical Company in Tennessee, close by where I live. And real estate people are not considered to be engineers by any stretch of the imagination. We have to be psychologists and all kinds of other things as well. So we don't really think like engineers too much. But this quote was really powerful, and it reminds me of the difference that I like to share with people about some real estate people are in the business and some people are professionals. Some people are professionals. There's a big difference between being in the business versus being a professional. And so today I wanted to share some of those ideas with you. So I will read it just for the purpose of going through it. Professionals are people who know their chosen specialty so well that they know which of its rules can be broken and when. My wife is a rule follower. She would not make a great real estate professional. She'll never break rules. I tend to break a lot of rules, which means that I'm not always the best realtor either. Okay. And under good for being a broker. The good part is, after 4 years, I've begun to start insuring this. But here's the main part about it. It's when and under what circumstances and knowing what the end result is going to be. So we're going to talk about that. Professionals are people who know both the strengths and the limitations of their specialty, and they respect both. We're going to get into this pretty deeply. A lot of the personal development stuff that we talked about, professionals are people whose standards of excellence are so high that their work becomes the standard by which others in the field measure theirs. People whose demands upon themselves preclude the need for someone to nag them about the quality of their work. People who might not be entirely satisfied with their work, even when everyone else thinks it's outstanding. It's a different standard. Professionals are people who never stop learning about their work, never turn down an opportunity to further extend the boundaries of their knowledge and craft. So this is a definition that I learned from an engineer and a speaker that I know now in Tennessee. This is the actual author of that quote. He was a consultant and computer scientist, so he was a really smart guy, wrote about 40 books on leadership, and he worked for Eastman Kodak. That's how my friend met him, is that he did a presentation when he was working for Eastman. Okay? So this guy is a pretty smart guy, and that's his quote. So how does it affect me? So So all of you, well, most of you know who this is. Who is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tim Wood did a lot of things like what you're seeing today. Tim knew what the rules were, but he knew when to break them. And one of the rules that happened back in Victor when I started working for Tim was that most everybody was like pretty status quo. They didn't really recruit. They didn't do a lot of training. Most of their agents were in the business. But Tim was a professional. And one of the things he did is that he would hire speakers to come in and talk to the company every now and then. And I remember going to it, I want to say it was in 1993. Tim, in one of his recruiting efforts, sent out a letter to everyone inviting them to come see a speaker that he had hired to bring in. The guy's name was Bill Phillips. And I remember this, I mean, he put an aspirin in the letter that he sent out in the recruiting thing, and he was inviting everybody. And I think what he said was, you know, we all have headaches in real estate.
Oh, cute.
It was a great idea. It was very creative. So he sent out a letter to invite everyone to come to listen to the speaker with an aspirin that said, you know, real estate can be a headache. So here's an aspirin. But if you want to get on the same page and learn from some of the people that we're learning from, I'm inviting you to come join the presentation. It was recruiting. That's what it was about, recruiting. Okay, but it was done in a very different way.
Did people show up?
I don't know if there was anybody that came from outside the company. Yeah, but I was in. And so this is one of Nicole's favorite stories. So at the very end of the presentation, Bill Phillips asked everybody in the room a question. The question was, okay, I'm interviewing agents for the job of selling my home. And he looked right at me and everybody else in the room and said, Mark, so I'm interviewing you and I'm interviewing Tim. So I want you to tell me why I should list my home with you instead of Tim Wood. Now, Tim was selling $7-8 million a year in real estate when the average price in Big Bear was $75,000. I think I sold 11 deals that first year when he asked that question. And I felt really bad. The answer that didn't come out of my mouth was, if you don't list your home with me, I won't have a listing. And if I don't have a listing, I can't make a commission. And if I don't get a commission, my kids won't eat. That was the best reason for that couple to list their home with me. Yeah. And I'm sitting there getting emotional thinking about it. Because that was the best answer I had at the time. But before the end of the day, I made a vow to myself. And the vow I made to myself was that I was going to come up with a better answer. I was going to come up with a better answer. And the answer was the journey that started me to go down this road. Because before that, I had been in the business. I was trying to make enough money to feed my family. I was not a professional dedicated to the business. Jim Rhodes said success is not something that you get. Success is something you become. And so you attract the people, places, and the circumstances into your life by the person that you become. And when I made the commitment to make professionalism part of my real estate career, I didn't have to work as hard to get people to do business with me. I just had to work hard on becoming better at what I was doing. And then they would come. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about the first part of professionals. They know their specialty so well, they know which rules can be broken. I love this picture here. When can you leave your lane? When is it okay to leave your lane? Well, obviously, if there's a wreck in your lane, you want to go around it, right? So how does that apply to real estate? So let's think about some of the rules. Here's a rule. Never show properties outside the client's stated budget rule. Anybody heard that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to look, between $350,000 and $400,000, and you're showing them property for the first, 2 or 3 hours in every house that you go into. They say, this is not it. This is not it. I don't like this. This is not it. And you send them home and they don't buy, and then they buy from somebody else down the road and they spend $600 and get what they want. Okay. When do you break the rules and how? Okay, that's an example. The don't get emotionally attached to the client's rule. Anybody ever broke that rule?
All the time.
So let me ask you a question. When you break the rules, does it always turn out bad?
No.
Does it always turn out bad? Are there clues as to when it will turn out bad?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I like this one because I get this every now and then. We always use a standard CAR contract template without customization rule. So somebody will say, you know, I got a purchase agreement from Arizona that it's not a CAR. Can I use it?
Yes.
The answer is yes. I have a one-page letter of intent. Can I present it to my client?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. In fact, if you have a napkin that has the buyer's name, the seller's name, the purchase price, and a description of the property, and they both sign this, it's a contract because in California, real estate law, any agreement has to be in writing. Now, there may be a lot of flaws to the napkin contract, or napkin contract, but it doesn't mean that it's not binding and that you can't go to court. So let's explore this together. Can anybody think about any real estate rules that have been troubling to them?
I know there's plenty, but I just can't think of them right now.
I should have given you guys a heads up on that. Here's an interesting one, and I was talking about this with a client yesterday, who's building a house up in Sugarloaf. Yeah, he's up in Sugarloaf, and he's building a 2,100 square foot, really nice custom home, and he builds a really, really nice custom home. And he said, Mark, he said, am I overbuilding for the area? Right? Probably. Probably. Okay. He didn't pick the safe choice, if that's what makes sense. Okay. But as we were having our conversation, I shared with him some information that I think was helpful to him, because the property that he's building on sits up above the street, and it has a nice view of trees with treetops in it. So there's a sense of privacy to it. Okay. And what I shared with him, which I think that you guys should all make a note of this, is that a lot of times when you're dealing with a client, what do they do when they go to Moonridge? They want seclusion that they get in Moonridge because they can't get it in Big Bear City or Sugarloaf. If you're on a flat lot and you're 100 feet away from your neighbor and you look out your window, like I'm looking out here, you're going to see your neighbor. But if you're 15 feet away on a slope lot in Moonridge and you look out your window, you're probably going to see trees or skylight or some other kind of deal.
Ski slopes.
So when you're in Moonridge, you have a feeling of seclusion that is not so much based on where the houses are spaced. It's because of the topography. And because of the topography where he's at in Sugarloaf, he's got a more Moonridge feel than some of the other properties. And so what I shared with him is I said, you're not going to get the same price that you would get in Moonridge. But what a good salesperson will do is they will find somebody that wants seclusion in Moonridge, that wants a 2,100 square foot high quality custom home, but can't afford it. And they will discount it 15, 20, maybe 25% and go to Sugarloaf. And they will get what they want at the price that they can afford, even though it's not in Moonridge. See, a lot of people aren't looking in Moonridge because they want to be in Moonridge. They want what Moonridge offers. And there's an example how you can change, you can look at a rule. Somebody says, I only want to be in Moonridge. Why do you want to be in Moonridge? I want seclusion. There's other areas of Big Bear that have that same seclusion. Right? Any other thoughts on that?
I also think that Moonridge is just one of those locations because people have heard about it. It's like a designer sub-city in Southern or in Big Bear that people are like, oh, my friends have a place in Moonridge. Oh, I heard Moonridge is beautiful. So it's one of those like key terms that people associate with a nicer area of Big Bear.
I remember that, when I moved to Big Bear, Sugarloaf had dirt roads and trees growing up in the middle of the street.
Rolling oil down the dirt roads.
So let's go on to the next one. Professionals know both the strengths and limitations of their specialty, and they respect both. So I'm looking for real-life examples that are not in real estate to help you with this. The teacher example, this is really a good one. The strengths of teaching is you can have a great teacher that inspires, guides, and unlocks understanding in their students. I mean, we've all seen movies and seen inspirational teachers that have changed the lives of kids and students and have changed the trajectory of their life forever, right? So a teacher can do that. What can a teacher not do? Teacher can't make the student put in the effort outside the classroom. The teacher can't force them to do their homework. The teacher can't force them to take any action, right? So there is a strength and a limit to the teaching profession, but we also have that in real estate. So we're going to use some marketing examples. The strength in marketing is you can have professional photography, which is now not a luxury, it's almost mandatory, right? I mean, if you're doing professional photos, you've just done the bare minimum. Yeah. Video, a lot of people are doing that. Staging, you have a few people that are doing staging. All of those things in your online exposure can dramatically increase showings, right? So we know the strength of our marketing can make it easier for people to see a property in a positive way, and they will want to come and take a look at the house. What's the limitation? No amount of marketing will sell an overpriced home in a declining market. Yeah. So when you're talking with your client, the reality is we have a marketing plan that can do powerful things for them, but there are some things that it can't do. So what is our response? Our response is that we have to educate them honestly and letting them know the truth about what our business is in a kind way. In a kind way. Make sense? Anybody ever have this situation? I mean, I want to say probably 90% of the listing presentations that I went on, and I think when you go on, someone wants more money for the house. What else do they say if it hasn't sold in 45 days?
It's your fault.
Those pictures really stink.
They're in the wrong order.
They're in the wrong order. Would you put some flyers?
There's too many photos. Okay.
Yeah, would you put a flyer in the flyer box?
Oh, yeah.
On front?
Can you do an open house?
Can you do an open house?
It's been a while since you've done an open house.
Your description of my house is open. We always get that stuff. It's never going to change. But as professionals, we know the strengths and we know the limitations, and we have to find good ways to explain that to our clients. I have some other examples. Technology and social media. The strength is, and this sort of goes to the idea about having flyer boxes. Does anybody pick flyers out of the boxes anymore?
Yeah. I run out all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know where they're going.
I've seen people pull over.
Yeah.
Did you see one of my favorite airplanes?
Yeah. All of a sudden, they're all on your desk and like.
The strength of social media ads, I mean, there is so much going on in social media that I didn't even have a clue until these last couple of years how powerful it is. Social media ads, contact management, search systems, digital signatures, all of the technology that we're using today in our business can make the transactions go faster, it's cheaper, you can get wider exposure using all of these tools. They're very, very powerful tools, but there's some things that it can't do. It can't replace the authentic conversations and the trust that you have with your clients by having good people skills. It can't replace that. How many clients have you had, buyers that have walked into the office and said, I want to see this property that I found online, and when you check, the property's not even available. I don't know if there's anybody in here that knows what this is. GIGO?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Gigo? Yeah.
You decide to say it.
Garbage in, garbage out. That phrase came out before the internet. That was about computers.
Yeah.
You know, and now there's so much of information that's available on the internet, but it's not accurate information. The best thing that happened to us is Zillow's estimates.
I said no one ever.
I do. That's me why.
It gives you an opportunity to show your professionalism, why you do what you do.
Because we're better than Zillow's estimates. Or we can be. Okay. They can't replace the relationships that we have with people. So our professional response is to use tech as tools to enhance what we're doing. And the reason that we want to use the tools is to save us time, so we have more time for what? Negotiations. I got something in my throat here. I think this is really important for a professional, is that when you have good negotiation skills, you can uncover win-win terms, repair broken deals, and secure better outcomes for clients. I just talked with an agent, and I don't want that person to raise their hand because they're in this room, that had presented an offer to an agent, and the agent said, we're rejecting the offer, and said why, but they didn't make a counter. And my response was, well, the agent on the other side didn't know how to put a deal together. Yeah, they didn't know how to put a deal together. So a skilled negotiator knows how to put deals together. I mean, you can, if the deal is right, you can use owner financing. You know, if you can, you know, if the deal is right for people, if you know what people's outcome is that they're trying to accomplish, you can use different creative ways to put those transactions together. And that's a strength that you can present with your negotiation skills, but the limit is that if your buyer can't afford lunch, they can't buy a house. And no matter how good your negotiation skills are, you're not going to be able to solve that problem for them. Does that make sense? So what do we do with that? We shift from deal making to expectation management when financing is the obstacle, but we also have to ask people really good questions and find out exactly where their financial situation is at, so we know what we can put together and what we can't. Some of the transactions that are the easiest to put together is for a seller that is desperate to sell, that can't get their price and can't get a property sold in the market, for a buyer that's got a financial problem that will do a lease option for a year, or do owner financing for a year, if it makes sense. If it makes sense. But you have to know the right questions to ask. Make sense? Okay, one of the other ideas, standards set so high they become standard. I'll never forget one of he was a RE/MAX agent, by the way, that ran a team about 25 years ago. I was talking with this agent and he said, Mark, are you a pilot? I said, I'm studying to be a pilot. He says, do pilots follow a checklist every time? And I said, yes. And he says, what happens if you don't follow the checklist? And I said, you crash or die. Right? You crash and die. So the question would be, when somebody is doing a $500,000, $750,000, $1 million transaction, why would you not follow the right checklist? This is probably one of the biggest problems in our industry today, is that we are so fearful of not getting the listing that when we're talking with the seller says jump, and we say how high. what will it take to get your listing? I want you to do this, I want you to do this, is the seller the professional? No. They're hiring us to be the professional. So I think it's important that we take this idea of having standards so high they become a standard, because right now our standards as an industry, I'm not talking about this group, but as an industry are so low and in such disfavor with the sellers, is that in order to get a listing, the sellers are telling us what we have to do to get their listing, when we should be so good at what we do that they say, I want to hire and pay you because your plan is better than my plan. I see a lot of really serious faces right now. That's the problem in our industry right now. I've shared with you guys the book, what is it, The Full Fee Agent? How many of you have read it?
What's it called?
The
Full Fee Agent.
Oh.
Go get the book, Full Fee Agent. So, in the early days, safety standards weren't so high and pilots were flying around crashing. And so they do something after every airplane crash, is they do an investigation to find out what went wrong. And every time they do that, every time they figure out what went wrong, they create a new standard and a new practice to overcome it. And so now we have all of these checklists for all these different aircraft that every single pilot does. I remember Mike Ferry one time saying he got on a plane and the pilot started going down the runway without going through the checklist, and Mike said, are you going to go through that checklist? And the pilot says, no. And Mike said, I'm getting off this plane. Okay. So the early pilots set the bar because they were interested in safety and precision. As real estate agents, we should be setting the bar based on what we know to be true. What we know to be true. So I'll address it this way. How many are you afraid that if you tell the seller the truth, they won't list with you? Everybody's hand should be up.
I know.
If you tell the seller the truth about what it's going to take to sell their home, how many of you are afraid the seller won't list with you? That should be everybody in the room.
I don't feel like I feel like if you don't wanna listen to me, I don't care if I lose the listing in this market. Only, well, because here's the reason behind it, because if, one, and obviously everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but one, if you're not gonna listen to me on a price and you wanna be way overpriced, and I'm gonna be honest with you, and it's not to say that I don't take listings that are a little overpriced, but it's something in my head that's not so extreme. But if you're gonna be so off the wall crazy with this price, I don't want your listing, because it cost me on average $1,000 to $1,200 just to list your property, and I have a family I have to take care of. So if I'm gonna take care or accept all of these overpriced listings, so it makes me look good on paper, but at the same time, it's emptying my wallet and taking away from my family, my lights, my dinner. I don't want your listing.
And that's the attitude that you have to have. Especially in the market that we're in now. There are some markets that if you say, hey, your home is worth $200,000 and they say I want $250,000, the market's going up so fast, you take the listing because 3 months later it's worth $250,000 and it sells.
Unfortunately.
But it goes, but it changes from time to time, okay? We should have strict checklists. One of the reasons why I think we have problems with our clients, number one, is that we take too many listings that won't sell because we're trying to make the people happy. And when it doesn't sell, they're not happy. And that means that we don't have a track record. I mean, what if you had a track record where 95% of your listings sold? That'd be great.
Be ecstatic, my husband could be home.
I know you want $450,000 for this $420,000 house. But I can promise you that it won't sell because I have a track record that if you follow what the market is telling you to do, there's 95% chance that it'll sell. We need a better track record. Okay? So their standard became the standard. Our industry standard is let's take the listing and see what happens. I'm suggesting that that's probably not the right way to go. Real estate excellence standards. Every single thing that we do should have a process to it. One of my recent podcasts, I think I shared with all of you, and I'll sort of repeat it briefly, is I learned early on to overcome the objections that people had before they voiced them. And going back 40 years, the number one company in town, they're not in business anymore, so I'll bring out the name, Spencer Real Estate. They had 90% market share. They had complete control of the market. They actually had a commission policy that penalized their agents if they sold an outside Spencer listing. They monopolized, almost monopolized. With 90% market share, they almost monopolized. And so what would happen on weekends, and this was before the internet, and this was before anything other than newspapers and signs in yards, people would walk in on a Saturday and they would say, or on a Sunday afternoon, it's probably more like a Sunday afternoon, and they'd say, we're thinking about buying a cabin in Big Bear. And I would say, if you looked at property before, and they'd say, we've been up here for the last couple of weeks working on that kind of thing. We'd like to see a couple of homes. Ding, 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 ding. Why are we in here on a Sunday afternoon after they've been looking for a couple of weeks?
They're ready to take the next step.
No. For the past 2 weekends, they've been working with a Spencer real estate agent that wouldn't show them anybody else's listing. And so the buyer was in my office because they wanted to see some listings that were not Spencer's inventory. Now, I knew I knew the market, and I knew what was going on in the market, so what I did was I answered that objection without badgering. So I would create my list. What are you looking for? 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 100,000. Okay, so I'd make my list. And the first house that we would go to, I worked at Donez at the time, I'd show a Coldwell Banker listing. And as we pull up and there was a Coldwell Banker sign in front of it, I would say, I just want you to know that I represent you, and I'm going to show you every single home that fits your needs to get you the one that you want. And they never said anything, but it was like, second house I'd go to was the most overpriced Spencer listing that I knew that would fit their needs. And as we pulled up, they'd say, we've already seen that. Third house would be to the Donez listing I wanted to sell.
Right.
I had a process. And as things changed over time, my process changed a little bit. And what it changed to at that point was that I really learned that in order to be an effective salesperson, I had to know what the buyer wanted. And I knew that they didn't want to be pushed. And I knew that they didn't want a fast-talking salesperson. So I would share with them in the very beginning, and this is on the podcast, but I'll do it briefly, is I would take notes of everything that they wanted. What are you looking for? What are you going to do? Are you going to be up there in the winter, the summertime? Are you going to ski? Do you want to be close to the lake? What are you after? And they would tell me, they'd say, okay, today my job isn't to sell you a house. My job is I'm going to show you all of the different areas and all the different styles of homes that could possibly be of interest to you. And at the end of the day, I want 2 things to happen. I want you to know what's possible in this marketplace. And the other thing is I want to know what you really like. And at the end of the day, you're going to say, I want to have that house in that neighborhood in that price range. And then after we've done that, next weekend when you come up, I will preview all of the listings available in Big Bear next week, and I'll show you the top 5 and save you a bunch of time, and you can pick the best one. That was my process. Now, you may not want to do exactly that same process, but I had that same process over and over and over again, and it worked. So do you have a process? Do you have a process? You have to get one. Client communication, we've had a little bit of discussion with some of the agents here recently about that, is that when you have listings that don't sell, people tend to get upset. So what is your client communication process? You call them every week? You send them something every week? Do you put it in your calendar, in your schedule, so that they know when it is? Or do they call you at dinner time tipped off? Do you have a professional process for your client communication? When you open escrow, do you send in the deadlines? On day 3, this is going to happen. Day 5, this is going to happen. 17, this is going to happen. 30 days, this is going to happen. Are you communicating and expanding their expectations appropriately? Because a lot of the times the clients are mad at us because we didn't tell them what to expect. Documentation habits. Oh my boy. As your broker, usually the only time you call me is when there's a problem. Isn't that right?
You know, I'm gonna start calling you just to say.
Seriously, seriously. You have to put the stuff in writing. You have to put the stuff in writing. Because when it's not in writing, it's he said, she said, and if it's he said, she said, who knows what's going to happen. But when it's in writing, it's better. You need to have good documentation. Open house standards, I thought this was an interesting one, I just sort of threw it in, is that if you go and hold an open house and you turn on the TV and watch a golf tournament like I did very early on in my career, waiting for people to walk in, that's probably not the best open house program. Okay. There's a lot of things that you can do. The key to our business is to talk to people. So when you're holding an open house, have a plan. I'm going to show up an hour early, or I'm going to show up 45 minutes early. I'm going to put the signs out and I'm going to talk to the people that are outside around their house and invite them to come to the open house. Tell them what's going on, find out if they're renting, find out if they're home. Talk to people. Maybe the 15 people that you talk to before your open house are the only 15 people you're going to talk to that day. Make sense? Okay. Post it on social media. Do your Facebook stories and your Instagram stories and let people know what you're doing. So if you're holding an open house and nobody shows up, at least the 5 billion people on the planet that are Instagram people will know that you were doing an open house today, right? That's
And it was good for your sellers too.
and your sellers. Okay. I think there are some staff people that will like this one. Professionals don't need to be managed. I love this guy. So this, when I Googled couch potato, actually I used Grok to find that. That's what came up for the couch potato. It's that kid right there. Okay. Waiting until someone reminds them to do something or it's too late. Whereas you have this gal over here with a calendar up there, she knows her business. She's doing it on purpose. Okay. And if you're doing everything on purpose, you become predictable. You become, I'm trying to think of what the right word is. You become dependable. If you say, I'm going to call you every Monday and give you an update on your house, and you call them every Monday, they stop calling and yelling at you. Never satisfied. Professionals are never satisfied. They want to continue to improve. I love this. I wish Ned Krause was here because I know he loves the Lakers. Even after scoring 40-plus points, Kobe would rewatch game film that same night. He looked for tiny details, footwork, spacing, little things, missed opportunities that others overlooked. When fans saw outstanding Kobe playing, he saw areas to struggle. His relentless self-critique set the standard for excellence in the NBA. I mean, he's my favorite basketball player of all time. And he worked when he didn't have to. That's one of the hallmarks of a professional. Mike Ferry tells the story, and I think I've shared this with some of you before, is that he used to play in the Pro-Am golf tournament every year down in Palm Desert. And he would play on Tuesday and Wednesday with the pros. And he asked Curtis Strange after one of their rounds, he said, what's the difference, Curtis, between a professional on tour and a single-digit handicap, or 1 or 2 handicap golfer? And Curtis says, oh, that's easy. He says, when a 1 or 2 handicap golfer plays around the golf, he goes to the bar and brags about the great shot that he made. After a professional plays 18 holes, he goes to the golf range and practices the 2 or 3 shots that he missed. So Kobe, after a game, goes and watches the film so that he could do a better job. The golfers go back on the range and practice the shots they miss. What do we do when we go on a listing presentation and don't get the listing?
Yes,
No, we come to the office and we bitch and complain to our Broadway saying, that jerk didn't listen to me and they overpriced their property and listed with somebody else. How productive is that follow-up?
I just stalk it. I stalk the listings and I wait to see like how long it takes to sell, and then I'm like, oh.
I do too, oh my gosh. Yeah.
But we can do better. We can do better. I learned a lot early on, there's 3 presentations. When you're going to do a presentation, there's a presentation you plan to give. Then there's the one you actually give. And then there's the one you give yourself on the way home. I should have said this. I should have said this. I should have said this. And that's what I'm asking you to do with all of your business. If you're showing a buyer and it doesn't work, ask yourself why. What didn't work? And then the next question is, what can I do and try differently the next time? If you can't come up with an answer, I like what you said, is ask them, why did you choose somebody else? Why didn't you buy it? Okay. Very good.
Do you ever feel like when you ask why, they just stop responding to you then?
No, but sometimes I think they're just being kind and lying to me, they won't tell me the whole truth, I have felt that.
I mean, the very rare times I've asked,
Yeah.
Why, it's been not, what the hell, why did you, it
No,
was
I-
more of a, so I can
See,
develop
what
and
I
grow
think that's
and,
exactly
whatever,
what I
but
do.
was there something specific to, whatever?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do, so that I can improve. And just find out. Sometimes they'll just say because the other person took less commission, I get that a lot.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
Joe
do.
Blow,
Yeah.
we'll take 2%.
Well, I've had someone say, well, we really needed to get this price, and this agent, and it was,
Oh yeah, I've had that too.
I'm like, okay, I got you.
Yeah, and the stalking begins.
Maybe say, call me when your listing expires. Yeah.
So to follow up on that point, never satisfied, the continuous improvement mindset. Average agent moves from showing to showing, rarely evaluates their skills. They complain about the condition of the market, complain about the client that they were talking about. Pro agent is going to review everything, trying to improve. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Learning. So professionals never stop learning, never turn down an opportunity to extend their craft. And you can do that in a bunch of different ways. Cross-industry learning, mentorship, both ways. And why do I think that's important? Tim Wood was by far my best mentor ever. But I was also mentored by Walt Dwyer. For what? One of the best ways to learn is what? To teach. So don't be afraid to learn your craft well enough and share it with other people. Mentorship both ways, conferences and workshops, mastermind groups. We're going to talk about that a little bit at the end. Podcasts and audiobooks. I mean, I have to be honest with you. The last year, today's the first. Today's the first. Last year on October 1st was the day that I decided to do time-tested mastery.
Wow.
So we had the conversation, we were talking about training and different things, and I said, let's start a podcast. I've learned more in the last year than I learned in the previous 5. And I hate to say it, but I should have started a long time ago, because I wasted a lot of time. Don't waste the time learning these things. There's a lot of good stuff going on. Okay, so my call to action for all of you is to create a personal business model to convert the chaos of your business into confidence. Now, some of you might be really offended when I say to convert the chaos of your business into confidence. But let's be real about it. If we don't have a plan that we're following and we're letting the customers drive the bus, we're on a crazy train.
Yes.
I mean, some of my clients are really sharp and they have good ideas, but some of them don't. And some of yours don't either. Okay. The next thing is to create a duplicatable buyer process and seller marketing plan that works. Stop saying yes to things to win listings that won't sell. Start selling a marketing plan and a process that will get the results that your clients are paying for. The next thing is develop a trust-first communication framework with your clients. Sell yourself first. And that goes to, I think it was Mickey's comment. She said, I think a lot of times I ask for feedback and they don't tell me the truth. So they just tell you what they think you want to hear. They just want you to go away. They're embarrassed kind of thing. Anybody can list a property. Anybody can sell a house. What you're really selling is your relationship with them. How am I supposed to help you if I don't know what you really want to accomplish? That's why I ask all of you about your goals when we're talking about business planning. What's your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? You know, what's driving you? What's going to motivate you? We need to know those things about our clients, and if they're not telling us the truth, then we need to work on our selling and relationship skills, because if we don't know what they want, how can we sell them? We can't. So come up with a plan to spend, I don't care whether it's the first 30 minutes, I don't care if it's the first hour, I don't care if it's the first day, developing a relationship of trust with your clients, because if you don't do that, everything else you do is a waste of time. It's a gamble. Professionals don't gamble. At least not the ones that I like. Create and write down a checklist and a plan of action to stay teachable under pressure. Probably an easier way to say that would be is if something's not working, get a plan to figure out why. You know, go to a coach, Google it, ChatGPT it, talk to me, talk to your peers. Something's not working, have a plan to solve it. Anybody heard this? Gosh, I missed them dating myself. So, some people have been in the business for 20 years, and they have 20 years of experience. Some people are in the business and have been in it for 20 years, and they have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times. We don't want to be that. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes. I want you to write down 3 must-do ideas that you got from today and circle the most important one. The 3 most important things. That was another thing Bill Phillips said. He said, how many of you guys got a good idea or two today? Everybody raised their hand. Yeah, I heard a few good ideas. And if you walk out of here today and you don't implement any of those new ideas, is your business going to change? The answer is no. So write down the 3 good ideas and circle the one that's most important. So I'm going to ask you all to send it to me. If there's anybody that is willing to share their ideas now, that would be great. I'd love to hear what you guys are working on, because that helps me with the things that I'm trying to do to help them.
Good questions and negotiations.